All right, I'm back again. So I was trying to do tricky things with this and like trying to make the little word up go like up higher, and I couldn't figure it out. So it all ended up way at the bottom of the screen for this. It's the Pep Up. So for many of us during the last few years, social media provided a venue for us to connect with other preparators during a time when we were forced to isolate due to the COVID pandemic. Our feeds were flooded with amusing posts from fellow art handlers, such as our very own Pack-In member, Sarah Tithridge, who is the driving force behind Art Tech Space. And you may recognize some of the following images if you subscribe to her page. While everyone was rushing about trying to score toilet paper and hand sanitizer, preparators around the world barricaded ourselves in our respective institutions. The show must go on, after all. As the weeks ticked by, we began to realize that the one thing that hadn't changed was the creative ways that artists devised to pack their own work for transport. Sometimes the artists employed packing materials that just made us laugh, like bicycle tire inner tubes, or spring-loaded foam chunks, cleverly attached to strips of pegboard, or flying saucers. While some artists did use traditional materials for padding, others chose to include special tools that went with the art. Sometimes it was difficult to tell exactly what was art and what was trash, unless we were lucky enough to be installing a piece by Tim Noble and Sue Webster, and that was the whole point. With the risk of infection looming, we scoured our listservs for the latest information on how to adapt our workplaces for maximum sanitation, and many of us opted to stagger our work shifts with our fellow crew members. And there was an even greater need to write clear art handling notes to our colleagues. As you can see, it is a matter of professional pride to label art boxes well. When faced with the tedious task of labeling an entire shipment of outgoing crates, it is the rare preparator who doesn't get a chuckle out of creative stenciling. As usual, most of us still spent a lot of time sticking blue tape on the wall and then peeling it back off. My wife always says she can tell what kind of day I've had by how much tape I have on my shirt when I walk in the door. And when we found ourselves peeling tape off the baseboard, it was almost impossible to resist the urge to fashion a little friend out of the sticky wad. During the pandemic, there was a certain kind of loneliness that crept in when faced with peeling paper off a whole exhibit full of new vits by yourself. I call this one Shoulder Buddy. While cities across the nation were in lockdown, many museums were left with a skeleton crew, but we still needed to install our exhibits on time. Not surprisingly, sometimes it got down to the wire on the last Friday of install. We found ourselves needing to pull in the only other staff members in the building to help out, just in case we got the go-ahead to open the next day. The tallest ones got a crash course in lifting tricky vits with every last cup stuck for maximum reachability. With a half hour left to go before closing, we ran around leveling art, picking up tools, and loose gloves. And then as security started locking doors and checking the bathrooms, we were forced to just shove everything in the back of the house in a classic dump and dash maneuver. But hey, it was the weekend, and while we couldn't actually go out with our friends in person, we did have social media. Many of us engaged in the endlessly entertaining preparator pastime of subjecting our pets to ridiculous things. We posted pictures on Instagram and relayed the acrobatic maneuvers required to get our faithful companions into desired situations. Ultimately, it was only the most accommodating pet that was rewarded by a repurposed crate in which to hide when they heard us coming. Then, come Monday morning, we went back to the museum to clean up, only to discover that several glove mates had skipped town over the weekend and left no forwarding address. Thanks.